Like my first game was 07. Coach just came off the Super Bowl, so I'm in the RCA Dome, I believe, in Indy, and I see Freeney, and I see Mathis, and I see how fast it is. I was good. I was like, you know what? Let me just sit here and get stronger.
Yeah.
Right? Let me understand what it takes to be a pro.
Leader of the lions, pick of the litter. Against the strongest, I'm alive and remain a victor. My battle scars that show that I am far from a quitter. Went through it all enough, still striving, that makes me a winner. When it's me versus the globe, with my back to the wall, when at my lowest of lows. Still I put up a brawl, was never in me to fold, never in me to fall. So when my story is told, they'll say I gave it my all.
Welcome back to Next Chapter Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Every guest is special, let's just be honest. But specifically for me, I know you, JT, we have a little bit of history, right? And I think, Bushrod, correct me if I'm wrong, when did you come to the Dolphins? In 2000 what? 16? Okay, thought so. So I got a chance to meet this individual, Jermon Bushrod. And when he came in, you were just coming off of shoulder surgery, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
And I used to bust his shit about like, yo, son, are you going to be out in the field someday soon? Like, are you just out here rehabbing like towards the back end of your career? Yeah. So I used to just prod him, just poke him. I don't know if you remember that, Bush.
I remember.
But before you know it, what I didn't know I was walking into was one of the best human beings I would ever meet, one of the best families I've ever seen somebody come from, but just really one of the guys that has a servant heart that wants to overflow into anybody, and we're going to learn that today. Jermon, welcome to the show.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Caleb, my guy JT over there. So it's an honor. Thank you.
And we won't hold it against them for not inviting us over to the barbecue on Saturday.
I'm telling you, you got to get on a list to get to Bush House because I'll be at a restaurant. I'll be on a restaurant around town. See somebody we played with. What's up, man? Where were you on last weekend? Oh man, we was over at Bush's.
That's good. Crazy. That's crazy.
Ate good.
What's crazy is that both of these individuals know they don't even have to knock. Just let me know when you at the gate. I'll make an Instacart. We'll get the food on the way and we'll be straight.
That sounds good in theory. In reality, there's multiple gates to get into your neighborhood, right?
Oh, there's two.
What?
Two
there's
gates.
two. To get through that, though, you have to be on the list, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't on the list one time, and I had to call him, and he refused to pick up the phone. So what I'm saying is we're very disappointed in you, and we expect an invite next time.
I got you.
Got it.
I got you. Sorry about
All right. Bush, let's take you back to your upbringing. Yep. One thing I respect and I always remember, like, I worked for the Dolphins for 13 years, JT.
Yep.
And this family of his, right, his dad, senior, after the game was like, Caleb, I got you. They cook up so much food, they could feed the entire tailgate at every Dolphins game. Like, that's how much food they're bringing to the table. And his dad, after the game, brought me a huge plate, all wrapped up in this to-go box. He brought me two huge plates that they had cooked up, and he brought it to me in the post-game, and I'm like, yo, this family's different. Yeah. Like, I had never experienced that in 13 years of somebody thinking about me who's just working in player engagement of bringing me food. But then I'm like, dang, I want to know about Bushrod's roots. Like, where did this mentality come from? And like, so Bush, let's take you back to growing up, where you're from, the values that were instilled in you. Talk a little bit about your folks and your parents and your family history.
All right, just to kind of go back to the tailgating, I mean, that's something that started when I was playing football at Towson University. I went to Towson in 02 to 07, and my grandfather always had an RV. So when I was growing up, we were very close-knit family. I'm from King George, Virginia. My father's from King George. My mother's from Westmoreland, Virginia. My father was a trash man. His father started that business in the 70s in Virginia, which if you sit back and think about it, it's not an easy that's not an easy feat, you know, especially for an African American man in what's considered the South, below the Mason-Dixon line. So you're in the South to start a trash business. So that is significant within itself. But just kind of getting back to the tailgate, and you listen, I mean, you know, food is something that brings people together, and they've been doing those tailgates from 02 all the way through my college years. And it's just built up bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that I still go back to, I go back to Towson now and people are still talking about the fish fries. They're still talking about the tailgating. And then, when I get this opportunity to play next level, if we're close enough, so you're talking Baltimore, Washington, Carolina, they brought the RV to Miami, to Tampa, they're going to take care of their people, and kind of going back to you, you were one of the guys that kind of grew close to me and my family. So, Pops is going to always take care of you. And that's just the type of individuals that I come from. I came from two great parents, two great families, two total opposites. But my mother, she worked on the government. She worked on the Navy base growing up. She was administrative assistant there, hiring people, bringing in new talent all the time. Again, my father was a trash man. Started as a trash man, started on the pickup truck, on the trash truck, and pretty much learned the business so much that, he's still running a part of the business to this day. Because we can get into the business, but that's been, that's kind of taken a life of its own. And just to see how consistent my pops has been, and that it was really, that was from his dad, and the values that he instilled in them. So,
so you're talking about generational fatherhood.
Yes.
You get to be a recipient of that. And that's something I think about a lot. And I really want to dig into family with you, especially because, I don't know, I guess, to be honest, I see you as a role model in the role of fatherhood. I'm sure Caleb feels the same way. Like, Bush really does the dad thing, really does the family thing, really shows up and loves on, not just provides for, love on your family. So what are the hallmarks of family? Like, how do you describe, like, what are these important tenets of family so that we get this little insight into
I just think being available.
Let me sit up.
I just think being available. I think being available is important, but then, just being that consistent role model. I look at my parents as they're two totally different individuals, but they were very, they were successful in what they've done. And shout out to my mother who just retired from the government after 30 plus years. But my mother's journey and my father's journey are two total different things. The way my mother would parent and the way my father would go about his day-to-day business was two totally different things. My father is I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to show you what to do. Every single day. The thing, and it's funny because after I sit back and I reflect on it and all the things that we've talked about, from your first program that you put on for players.
Yeah.
My father has been that every single day, and my mother was the same way. My mother sacrificed. My mother came from Westmoreland, Virginia. They didn't have she didn't have a whole bunch growing up, but neither one of my parents went to college. My father skipped a couple grades in high school because he was smart, and he used that. And my mother sacrificed. She was driving from Westmoreland, Virginia, which is a small town, smaller than King George, up to D.C. early on in her government career. And she's got to a place where she found her home on a naval base in Dahlgren, Virginia. And, I'm a mix of both of my parents. My mother, she wears her heart on her sleeve. You'll see the emotion in her face. My father is just even keel the whole time. And they were that way when they were supporting me. So I think just kind of getting back to your question, JT, I just think being there, being supportive, whether good or bad, and just, trying to, my mother would try to push me in certain directions. Hey, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. My father would just, like I said, he'd always be consistent. Whatever you want to do, you go on and do it. And I understood that it's going to take a lot of work, but they were always there for me. I don't know, in high school, going back to high school and college, they might have missed a game, maybe a couple games. That's it, So I'm very fortunate, very blessed for the upbringing that I had because I got to see and I got to learn from two different styles of individuals.
Which style was your favorite?
Yeah,
which style you use?
I can't even say one of them is my favorite because now I sit back and I think about it. My mother was the one who I would pick up, or she would pick me up from school, and I'm from King. Like I said, you'll see it, when you visit where I'm from, there ain't nothing close. So my school was 15. My house is 15 away from the school, 15 away from the supermarket, 45 minutes away from quote unquote town. That's what we used to call it back in the day. And she was the one who was always giving me these lessons, day in, day out, to the point where it's like, okay, like I hear it. But now as I get older, and I get in college, it's like, oh, I get what you were saying. I get those lessons, watching what you're doing, watching the people you're around. And she would drill it into me over and over and over. You need to make something about yourself. You need to, you got a lot of, not saying that you got a lot of people riding on you, but at the end of the day, the Bushrod name, it carried some weight back home, and it was something that you had to live up to. And not saying you had to go out here to be this professional athlete, because we'll probably get into that a little bit later, but that wasn't on my radar at all. And it wasn't like my father was like, hey, you're going to come work for, you're going to work in the family business. This is going to be your career. He never pushed me to do that. Neither one of them did. So, I got a lot of respect for that, and I appreciate that, as an adult and as a father now.
And that bedrock was strong. Like the bedrock of your family is so strong, and like I have such an appreciation for your family, and as JT said, to who you are, because you show up in that way every single day. And we'll get into some of those details of how that translated in your life. Speaking of that, how did we get into football? Like, what was that like? Where did it start? And then how did that journey go for you from the moment you played to kind of taking us through Townsend, which I don't even know where the hell that's at, by the way, today. But I start getting into the journey of football. Still today. No clue. I'll Google it later.
Football started out for me in 7th grade. It wasn't pretty at first. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you.
It never is.
I liked playing baseball growing up. I played it since I was 4. That was really my true passion. You talking sports? I love baseball. I could play baseball every day. Football was something I did because all my friends were doing it. And I was always one of the bigger kids, so it was like I need to do it. My mother, she never let me play when I was younger. She just wasn't having it. And even when I did go and play, she was like always in my ear, like, why do you want to play that? You can get hurt. You can do, this could happen. Just being a mother, and I get it. I understand it. But that journey didn't start till I was about 12. I wasn't very good. 7th and 8th grade. 9th and 10th grade, I was a big player. I mean, I it's funny. I look back at play. I like to go back and like look at old pictures and things like that. I mean, we weren't really like we weren't a football family. I remember I told my pops I needed gloves. And this dude gave me some gardening gloves. You remember the brown glove like that? And I remember taking a picture in those, and I'm like,
"Hey, wait, you took a picture like at the house or like the football team picture?"
Like, it was my.
You have a picture of that.
I'm not showing you, but
Christina, we gotta get that picture. We about to put it in here when he's talking about that.
That's what I'm saying. Like football wasn't. I didn't care. Like it wasn't that big of a deal to me, right?
Yeah.
But then as I got to high school, a lot of my couple of my best friends, they're all 3-sport athletes, and I'm a 3-sport athlete: basketball, football, baseball. And I started to obviously enjoy it a lot more, but I didn't get an opportunity to really start. I didn't play varsity until 11th grade. I didn't start till probably halfway through that, and I didn't have many offers. Actually, I had 2 offers in high school. My SAT score wasn't high enough to get into the University of Richmond.
That was the other offer? University of Richmond?
So it was the University of Richmond, a couple D3 schools, and Towson came late. So I think signing day was like in February. Shit, I think I didn't sign until probably a couple weeks after.
Yep.
So I went to Towson because me and my best friend Los, we went to Towson. So we were pretty much going to be bunked up together. Just good to have that kind of camaraderie. And when I got into school, obviously I got in there, but we had to pay. I wasn't on scholarship my first 2 years, so mom and dad had to come up off of 20 racks a year, 20 grand a year.
Wow.
For me to go play football, and I was promised a scholarship. Thankfully, through Gordy Combs, who was the head coach of Towson then, and he promised my dad, nothing in writing, but he was like, once we make this transition over to this Atlantic 10 league, we can start giving out athletic scholarships. because I didn't qualify for financial aid. So
I got a question to ask you. So I love getting into people's mindsets. So you go to Towson, not on scholarship. What's in your mind about the game of football? Are you thinking I'm Bush pro one day? Or are you thinking I got to come here, hit the books? I'm interested in this major because I want to do this. And I also want you to talk about what it means to you that your parents reached into those pockets and paid for your education, and how maybe that has shaped you in some ways.
I didn't know what I wanted to do when I first got to school. I'll just, being transparent, I didn't know which route I wanted to go. Obviously, I knew my passion was around in the sports world. So that's why I picked a sports management major with a minor in business. I knew that me having a little bit of knowledge about business could one day benefit me, because if all else fails, I can go back home and
You got a business.
And I got a business, and I can, work my way from the bottom there, because it's, it's a lot. I've seen like I said, I've seen my pops do a lot for that business, so I know it's not easy. So I figured that, it would be at least good for me to have some of that knowledge after this. But JT, just for your, man, me going into it, I never had NFL. I want to let you know, I never had NFL aspirations, because I didn't know that was something that was attainable for me. I went to King George. I'm from King George, Virginia. I went to King George High School. Nobody's ever been a professional athlete out of King George High School. Nobody came back and had a camp, or there wasn't professional athletes that would come back to my hometown and I could get that type of motivation to be like, hey, you know what, I could do this. I could do that if this is the route that I want to go down. So we can get in that later, but like my whole mindset changed with one conversation. It was my red shirt sophomore season at Towson. I had an offensive line coach, Coach D, John Donatelli. I remember the conversation verbatim. I remember where I was at. We were on the third step outside of our stadium, between the stadium and the gym. Woo! And he told me, and he said, and this is verbatim, he said, man, I have these NFL scouts coming in here to check out a couple guys, and they're asking about you on the left side of the line. And he said, this could be a reality, but you're going to have to change the way that you do certain things. You're going to have to change who you are if this is the route that you want to go down. And I told him from that day forward, shit, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is failing. And to me, back then, even if I was to get a tryout, I'd have been ecstatic.
Yeah.
Because that's a world that I never, like I said,
Nobody
never
had
dreamed
ever
about.
gotten a tryout
No.
from where you come from.
No.
A lick.
No. Maybe one of my coaches did in baseball, but nothing football. No, nothing. So from that day forward, I changed pretty much who I was. The way I prepared, how I worked out, how I saw myself on the field. He told me, he said, the thing about this league, you got to be the most dominant. You're a smaller school guy, you got to be the most dominant, you got to stick out on tape. I said, all right. By senior year, I was the most dominant offensive lineman in the league. Tape. And that's what it, and those were some of my personal goals that I wanted to hit. And that's kind of where my foundation came from. He taught me about visualizing, taught me about these are the steps that you need to take. And it's all because of, it's all because of him, having that individual who came in your life that saw something in me that I didn't think was a reality for myself. And, but yeah, I mean, I felt a little bit of pressure for sure. I mean, when your parents are paying that type of money in 2002 for you to go to school, where I could have gotten the same education at a closer school without playing any sports. I thought it was my duty to go out there to make sure that I'm doing things the right way, because they provided so much for me in life. So if this was my opportunity to say, hey, I'm getting this scholarship, when we make this transition, I'm going to get this scholarship. And that was important to me.
One conversation, one relationship will change your life forever. You just don't know when it's going to come, right?
Yep. And I think you got to be open to that as well.
No question. So the seed that was planted, when you said open to that, the moment that seed was dropped in you on that, what you said, the third step, correct? The moment that seed was planted, if you look back, what are some of the things that you look back on, you say, man, these habits, these disciplines, maybe belief, the visualize and rise, which we'll get into in a second, but like, what sticks out to you? What 3 things stick out to you from that conversation that were instilled into your life in that moment that you carry with you today?
Outwork everybody. Outwork whoever's beside you. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know that. See, I was like the guy in sprints or in conditioning period that was towards the back of the line. And to me, then it was I'm starting to develop better characteristics, being a better leader, you know. I've never been a captain. So it was like, okay, what do I need? What does it take for me to get there? And, man, so what I did is I went hard and I didn't want to look back. I didn't want to have any regrets about it. Like I said, if I could get on the team, I would be happy. But then it's like you don't realize that as soon as you work hard to get something, you want to work a little bit more harder to keep it. I'm going to work even more harder to stay around. And I just think, you know, just being resilient. I think I was tough, you know. And I'm just going to, you know, I'll just outwork you. I'm not, you know, I wasn't the biggest. I wasn't the strongest, but I had heart, you know. Whether I played at Towson, played in New Orleans, Chicago, Miami, it didn't matter, you know. They had draft picks, you know, a lot of people that they would try to draft so they could take your spot, cheaper options. I'm like, cool, I understand the business, but you ain't gonna outwork me though. You know, and I think that started back then. I think that toughness, I think I had a little bit of that, but I think it started mental toughness, physical toughness. I think that started back in those college days as well.
What was your biggest, I mean, it's amazing
Powerful.
That hard work and resilience became your secret sauce, right? And that got you from Towson into the league and stayed in the league. What were some of the things that you had to show resilience through? Like getting this opportunity to talk to some of the greatest athletes in the world, great men, but to hear that they've had things they've had to work through is powerful for people. So I want to take this opportunity to ask you, you know, what are some of those things that you had to be resilient through? What were those days like, and what was your way to get through it?
I just think, you know, I could give you my first 2 years in the league. I was on the active roster, but I didn't play. I think I dressed 5 games. Special teams reps, never took a rep on offense. Not 1 in 2 years. You know, after and I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. That first year, I came from Towson. I seen it. I saw what these guys look like. My first game was 2007. Coach just came off the Super Bowl, so I'm in the RCA Dome, I believe, in Indy, and I see Freeney and I see Mathis and I see how fast it is. I was good. I was like, you know what? Let me just sit here and get stronger.
Yeah.
Right? Let me understand what it takes to be a pro.
Yeah.
Like let me see what some of my leaders in front of me, see what they're doing. So I was very observant. So I just pick up on certain things. Like, I like the way you do those. I like the way you do that. I like the way you prepare. How do you study? You know, so I was always like, I'm not a very vocal person, but I try to be very observant. If I have a question, I'm really meaning to ask it.
Yeah.
And I think that takes some resiliency, because I wasn't impatient, but I was like, you know, when my time comes, I'm gonna be ready. And when my time did come, it was up and down. It was 2009. It was pretty much my first year playing. It was some ups and downs, some things in that year that obviously I felt like I could play better, but I think I had to be really resilient to it and understand that I can get better.
Yeah.
If I can get better, then I can help this team a little bit, you know, because I'm just a small piece of the puzzle here.
Let me stop there for a second, though. Those first 2 years, right, we've talked a lot about mentorship, right, and what it means, like you, and being receptive, right? You talked about receptivity to the coach having that conversation. So in your first 2 years, right, you're observing, you're a sponge, but we talk a lot about who's in that locker room.
Yeah.
Who did you go to find that mentorship, to be able to build these disciplines and waiting your time and being prepared? Who were those individuals?
So our offensive line coach was Doug Marone, and Duke. I mean, he teaches you how to work. He teaches you how to maximize your time in this league. Probably pushes you somewhat so much that you're like, all right, just back off a little bit. But I understand it. Like, I get it. We had the thing about New Orleans, we had a great room. We had a great offensive line room. We had a great team. And the one thing that New Orleans really, from Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis era, is that they were really focused on the locker room. They're focused on the locker room, the type of people that they bring in there. And as far as the offensive line room, I thought we had a good, solid room. You had a guy, Zach Strief, he's now the offensive line coach in Denver, but he helped teach me the playbook. It was his second year, my first year, and Doug was like, listen, help this guy right here get caught up. So he helped me a lot, right? Then you had guys like John Stinchcomb. That gentleman is very high in his faith. Very high in his faith. So, just being able to see how he deals day to day, week to week, success, failures. Jamal Brown was the tackle that was in front of me. So we were the similar body type. So I got to see how he plays. And I would look at him and be like, all right, we kind of similar on the strength scale. And I can move like you move. So I can do that. I can do what you do, Stinch, a little bit. We're the same build, right? So I was a sponge. I'm just picking up on different things that I see. Like I can't play the game like 6'7", 340-pound tackle plays the game because I ain't built like that. But I am built like some of these other players. I can't prepare at a high level. So I just think that it was a lot of people that I was able to cross paths with that I could just take certain things from here, take certain things from there. And honestly, I didn't even have to know you. I could see the things that you would do on tape, and I would not say mimic, but try to put myself in those same type of situations.
That's powerful.
No, yeah, I mean, something that keeps coming up on this podcast is this force. I don't know what that force is, whether it's a parent, whether it's a coach, but this force is pushing you past where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how important that is for what you were able to become and what you just think about that in general? Because so many people are like, oh man, it's uncomfortable. Like this person's pushing me. Every day they're riding me. But if you want to play elite sports, that becomes something you got to be cool with. And what has that been like for you, and how important do you think that is?
I think it's everything. I think that is the key to success, is being uncomfortable and practicing being uncomfortable. Obviously it starts a little bit in high school because you don't get from high school to college without being a little bit uncomfortable. And I had good, solid coach, so I make sure that I show my love to those guys too. But my high school coaches and my position coaches, Major Haynes and all the different coaches I had in all the different sports, man, they pushed us. And then by the time I got to college was tough. I mean, my first day, it was on my birthday. We ran 300-yard shuttles. I threw up everything I had, and I'm like, damn, this is the first day of college, So I wasn't being pushed, but my level of work has to be increased. And then when I cross paths with John Donatelli, Coach D, he pushed me in a way where I was either going to love or hate football, and I understood it. I got to understand like why he's pushing me so hard, because he saw something, right? And then me just being that sponge, I'm like, okay, I'll continue to find a way to push through this to get better. But he made me extremely uncomfortable. So then by the time the game time comes, I'm ready to play. I'm ready to do this. And that right there really carried over. That really carried over in my professional career. And then I started to mimic different things that I would see other people do. I would start to, like we were talking about earlier, just try to be that sponge. But I couldn't lose that within it, And I think they did a good job early on in New Orleans by making practice hard. I mean, listen, my first training camp was in Jackson, Mississippi, at Millsaps College.
Ruh-roh.
There wasn't a breeze. There wasn't rain.
Sloppy.
My first day was 300-yard shuttles. At 11 o'clock, we had practice up on the hill in the grass at 320, shoulder pads. So we did that for 5-6 straight days. So like the way the NFL is now, that's why I knew I could play 10 plus, because if I can deal with that, I can do one a days.
I can do one a day.
I can do one a day. But like that's kind of what I was used to. And that's and I think I was very fortunate to be in that type of environment, you know, working hard, making sure that practice is harder than games. So yeah, I think that's
how was that specifically, all those things that we've just talked about, how was that carried over for you personally, right? We talk about transitions and going through things in life and like how do we overcome them? All these things that you've just told, man, like powerful, but how was that translated into your personal life? And have you had any tough transitions on the personal side where you've had to use a lot of these skills that were developed in you and they'd had to show up in real time?
Well, I've had to use, again, probably, you know, leaning back on my family, you know, in the times that, especially the tough times professionally. You know, my wife and I hit tough times. But, you know, speaking on a professional level, you know, getting cut, getting released, getting hurt, those types of things, they don't go your way. And like I said, I've been very fortunate to be able to have people that I can lean on. I am an introvert, so I do have a quality of sometimes keeping things in, not talking about it. But then when I do get it out, especially to the right people, they kind of help guide me. You know, so I lean on my mother a lot, especially, you know, you get hurt, you're not playing, or you get cut, or the team goes in a different direction. You know, I had some good people that I could lean on. I had some people I could call on that I could lean on. So really just utilizing not really my network, I guess you could say my network, but really just relying on my family, the people who's kind of helped me get to the place I am today.
The community.
That community.
I keep trying to say this. I'm going to say this over and over and over. Mental health and mental well-being is not just about the skills that we possess.
Right.
Yeah.
So much of it is about having someone there that can support us and that can help us have our balance when we're going through those tough times. And that's what we're so much about with PAC, right? You know, following Caleb's leadership and constantly keeping the community at the forefront of the focus.
Yep.
What has it been like for you to be a part of the PAC community? I mean, you are an important part of the community. I mean, you have the respect, I think, of every guy in the community. What has the PAC community been like for you?
It's been special. It's been really needed, you know. So for me to go to Miami, my journey to get to Miami, I wouldn't have been in Miami if I didn't. Let me see. If I didn't. So kind of give you some backstory. Gase's first year in Miami, that's how I got to Miami. Well, Gase came from Chicago. I was in Chicago that year. John Fox came up there. He brought Gase. I was the starting left tackle. I get hurt. Week 3, blew my shoulder out, got a concussion. Decided to be a tough guy, not go get worked on. I ended up coming back thinking it was my spot. You don't know this, but I was walking out on the field, ready to go back and get my spot. Offensive line coach at that time, somebody, I don't know who it was, pulled me off to the side and was like, hey, we're staying with the younger guy. And I'm like, man, I'm 30 years old. You know, you could have called me up to your office. You could have told me this instead of, you know, it was embarrassing. You know, as a man, you know, your pride gets hurt a little bit, you know, right. But. And that was a tough situation for me in my career. But, you know, at the end of the day, I could have acted out. I wanted to act out. I wanted to say things. I wanted to let them know how I feel. I let them know how I feel, but I didn't do it in a way that was malicious, you know. I leaned on my people. Obviously, I am a man of faith, so sometimes you gotta dig in that in that faith bag a little bit and figure out how to deal with certain situations, talking to the right people. And, you know, that situation was a blessing in disguise, I guess you could say, at the end of the day, because Gase was appreciative. And it's a conversation him and I had. He was appreciative of the way I handled the situation because I handled it as a pro, you know, and I took that shit serious, being a professional. I took it serious. I know where I come from. I know these type of opportunities don't come around often, so I took it serious and I found a way to get back out there. Gase gave me another opportunity. So how did I get to Miami? I got to Miami because Gase got the head coaching job, and he thought that I could be an older vet that some of these young guys could look up to, and that's how I ended up crossing paths with Caleb in my 10th season. And honestly, it wouldn't happen if that domino effect, if I didn't handle business the correct way back then. So I'm fortunate that I was able to be signed in Miami. It's great to be down here in South Florida, but I think it's great to be, in cahoots with a gentleman like Caleb who cares about the individual, not the player, quote unquote player, because upstairs you're a player. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all have passions and things that we want to do in life. So crossing paths with Caleb, being a part of 3 or 4 business combines, I needed that. That's that sense of community. That's that sense of understanding who you are, because I know the transition can be tough, but my transition was a little easier because I got great people like that, great people like yourself, JT, that care about, guys after the fact.
I pushed his ass out of the comfort zone. Don't let him fool you, okay? Let's just be very clear. This man came in 2016, and I remember like this yesterday. First of all, I understand the foundation now of why this was up on the wall. So catch this, everybody. So when you think about veterans, usually JT, there's vet days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Vet days off. You're talking about being 30 years old, right?
What are those?
Okay. So vet days off, and Bushrod refused to take a day off, right? But at the same time, they made a joke out of it. Above his locker, they would change it every day in terms of the number of days Bush has not had a day off, right? So the number goes up, and it's 50-something, it's 60-something. So all these days, and it was a running joke. You talk about community. That brought a sense of community to the locker room. But it also, you talk about leadership. This guy was battling shit. I mean, he got his shoulder taped up, or braced up and coming out there like a robot. But when he got on that field, he's going. All those characteristics are showing up every single day. Now I heard what he heard, right? But Bush, I knew, was going towards the back 9 of his career, right? Like he was entering the back 9 of his career, and I wanted to press into him. Like it was the first year we did the Dolphins Business Combine in New York City, where we brought guys up to Stephen Ross's, location, his related group, but also all of his other ventures and that he was involved in. That was our first opportunity to expose these guys, and the owner would allow his doors to be open of opportunity and access outside the game. So me and Bush had many conversations, pushed his ass. I remember us sitting in the cab together in New York City just talking about, man, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about, so it got his brain turning. Like you have to break people outside of their comfort zone. See, he comes from a small town. He hasn't been exposed to a lot. He's dominated in the NFL, but I'm like, yo, son, there's more to life than that. Let's break open some more doors. And so it was fun to push him out of his comfort zone, and more fun that we've been doing community together for so long, and that we get to be great men, fathers, and husbands together beyond the game down here in South Florida. That is what excites me every day. Is you two, I have so much respect for, and how you show up every single day, because I guarantee there's that same sign sitting up in Bushrod's household that's like, haven't taken a day off as a dad, father, and husband either. Right. That sign's still going. Right. And I think that's the coolest thing about relationships, man, is like, I respect it so much, but it motivates me to show up as a great man, father, and husband in my household every day. And I had to communicate that to both of you guys, so you understood that.
I appreciate that.
No, that's real.
Yeah.
And just, wanting to stay on this whole pack topic, because I think it's so important to really be able to hear from the people that have had the most experience. And Bush, like you said, being able to go to business combines, but then actually being able to go through the Next Chapter U program. Talk about what Next Chapter U was like for you, because it's a little bit different than the business combine. Yeah. And, what are some of the things that you enjoyed or maybe didn't like, or, what are those things that, left an impression on you?
Yeah. So I guess you could say the biggest difference between the business combine and where PAC is now. The business combine at first, it was just like, I'm going to expose you to a bunch of different things, and you're going to be around a bunch of different people, and you're going to hear a bunch of different stories, and you're going to understand that everybody kind of has the same makeup. They show up day in and day out. They have something they believe in, and they just go for it. And they have really good people around them, and that's going to help them get them to the top, or it's going to help, bring them down. And I think the biggest thing for me is, one, when you get guys out of our comfort zone, because we're very comfortable, like the NFL bubble, it's nice on the field, but off the field it's even better because you have people who will do all your daily household duties, whatever you need to be done, appointments, whatever, abundance
of resources.
Right. So it's like, it's nice to be in that bubble a little bit, but then when you get out of it, you're like, oh, shit's different out here. I got to call this person. I got to set this up. I have to do that. I have to enroll in this class if I want to be able to further educate myself. So I really think the biggest difference has been the continued education piece of it, the continued support, and the feedback has been important, right? Like what you've been able to do to change your system from where it was because I was at the first 2 business combines. The second one changed, but it was still similar to the first. But what you're doing now it's different. Like you don't have quite as many different businesses or people, but you have the right businesses, the right people, and the right individuals who make you feel like, man, I'll help you. JT, I'll help you. If you want to get in the real estate space, man, I'll help you. You want to learn about franchising, I'll help you. And then now you've tied the education piece into it with the University of Miami.
Yeah.
I just think that, that's the blueprint to really helping these guys and changing their life. And the fact that you're even doing it, like, ever since the first one, man, what is that you're doing? I had guys in my messages texting me, calling me, what you got going on there? So, people, they see that, they want that. And that's why I think the biggest difference is that you've taken that feedback and you've ran with it. And you've stepped out of your comfort zone because you were in that bubble too, the NFL bubble. Now you're off doing something and it's inspiring, you know what I'm saying? So, and you inspired me back even when you invited me up to the Michigan State deal. Like I can see how I'm going to implement some of that stuff into Visualize and Rise in the future. So, I mean, yeah, it's just really surrounding yourself with people who are successful, who are really pouring into other people, and I think that's important.
Speaking of pouring into other people, right? So, first of all, I appreciate your just commitment to excellence, and I'm glad that you see the progression of how things go in PAC, right? In next chapter, you and what we're trying to do and build, because a lot, you're a big piece of now that mentorship who's going to pour back into somebody else that's going to come through the program.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're looking to build is how do we create that continuity, that togetherness, that challenging one another. But also, JT, you said the power of the community is all the resources, right? Like being able to help one another out. He comes up to Apex Academy, our nonprofit. He's like, yo, how do I bring this to Visualize and Rise? And I'm like, yo, let me help you out with some things. And you've taken it to another level and Visualize and Rise every year. So for those that don't know what Visualize and Rise is, how did that start? I know you mentioned it earlier in terms of the seed, but let's talk about that in seed form. And let's talk about Visualize and Rise and what you're doing to empower your community. Yeah,
so Visualize and Rise started from that same conversation. When I wanted to figure out how I can give back to my community, because I talked about it earlier, we didn't have professional athletes coming back to host 200-300 kids in a camp. We didn't have that back in my hometown. So, after I'd won a Super Bowl with the Saints in 2009, that was my first year starting and playing throughout that whole year. And then in that summer, I'm like, well, what can we do now? Because I didn't feel like I made enough impact professionally to do that as soon as I came out. I wanted to play and I wanted to kind of start to sink my roots into the NFL a little bit before I started this next venture. Whether I played or not is still impactful, but for those kids to see me on that field and then to come back and do it, that's why that's why we started. So Visualize and Rise started from that conversation, and we started it in 2010. We're 13, 14 years running now. It started out as just a youth football camp. Now it's turned into an even bigger youth football camp, and now it's a 13th year we're doing that, and the 13th year we're doing our celebrity golf tournament. And that's really our big fundraiser throughout the year.
Talk to the folks, though, about what that fundraiser, what that money, like, first of all, doing it that long, that's just show some respect for that. You talked about what your dad taught you.
Give him his flowers.
Steadfast. And even when you're done playing, it's even harder to keep a foundation going. Right. I respect the shit out of you for what you're doing because it's not easy once the game is over. A lot of that goes away when guys are done for many reasons. But talk about Visualize and Rise and what you're gaining. What are you guys fundraising for, and how does it impact the community?
So our fundraising efforts go to our Visualize and Rise Scholarship Fund. So every year we pick 10 kids from my high school and then 15 kids from the surrounding high schools in our county. And they have to go through the scholarship application. But long story short, we picked 25 kids. That's why we have our scholarship program. I donate back to my high school and other local high schools. It helps us during Thanksgiving, during Christmas time. We're able to host toy drives. We're able to link up with social services back home and make sure that, kids and families have food during Thanksgiving and toys and food during Christmas. And so that's probably the bulk of what we've done over the years, but we've also ventured off. Like I told you, my wife and I had a tragedy that hit our family. So we were able to partner up with another foundation that focused on the tragedy that we went through, and we were able to help some of those families. So we've had our hand in so many different things. So like I said, we were able to donate to the research of that. We were actually able to do a wish list for families that were affected by Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome, which is a disorder my week-old baby back in 2018 she passed from. And it was an extremely tough time for us, but it was a way for us to continue to make sure that we knew that people knew that somebody else was feeling what they felt, understood. I don't understand what you're going through because my child isn't here, but if my child was here, I wouldn't be hurting for anything financially because I understand the stress that it could put on you. So we're able to partner and help out some of those families as well. And, with my wife being from New Orleans, we were able to help out some of the hurricane, this past hurricane from a couple years ago. We were able to help out some of those families. So our real focus is student athletes in the education space. And Caleb, I've shared this with you. I think we've done a pretty good job of bringing in funds and giving out funds. But I think it's a time for us and our foundation to build and have that hands-on approach and really not pick your brain, but mimic some of the things that you were doing in Michigan State, because I feel like as we've been making a good impact, we can make a great impact moving forward. And
I need you to speak about the vision, and I need you to speak about it in a way that it's already done. But tell people where Visualize and Rise is going and why it's important to have what you're thinking about in your own building. Cast that into, tell people what's coming in terms of the building and what it'll do for kids.
Yeah, so Visualize and Rise, like I said, I've been happy about where we are, but we need to pivot a little bit and increase our impact, I guess you could say. And right now, back in my hometown, just to give you a little backstory, there's a school that was built in the late 40s during segregation. And it's called the Ralph Bunche. Back then it was just called Ralph Bunche School, but Ralph Bunche High School. And it was built for the betterment for African Americans, because it was a place that African Americans go to and obviously get their education, be around people who looked like them, who cared about them. But this building was built in the 40s, had an addition in the 50s, and the last addition was in the 60s, and obviously segregation ended in the later 60s. But the school has been sitting there in my hometown for years. And last year, I just went on Facebook and was just, what's going on with this school? Click, send. And to come to find out some group was trying to get it and made plans. Obviously that fell through, and then I was able to get in, into cahoots, into partnership with people within our county, and now we have a really great opportunity to be a part of the rebuilding of that building. And it's obviously passing it every day, you know it's historical, but I actually been in it numerous times to walk it, to see. We could put up a building anywhere, right? You're talking Visualize and Rise. We could put up a building wherever we want, but that building has real special meaning. And it has meaning because it was like Visualizing and Rising back then. Like, there was a group of people that cared enough about the people in this town to put this school up, and now we can bring that back. And it's going to be called the Ralph Bunche Visualize and Rise Center. We're going to be in partnership. I won't put the cart before the horse, but we're going to be in partnership. We already are with the county, King George County, and the school, the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association. There's a group of individuals who are still alive who would love to see this come about. They've had numerous groups, individuals come in, say, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and nothing ever happens. So I want to be a part, and I want to implement some of the things that we want to do within the space with what the county wants to do. I want this to be a partnership. I think that we can all get along and we can all make this happen. I really believe that, just because, that's what Bushrod Disposal was. That was the trash business. It was Bushrod Disposal. And when I hear people say you can't work with family, I saw my family employ family all their life. I saw my family employ, and another thing, talking like leaving legacy and being special. Like, my grandfather was the type of person who would give that guy who is looking for a second chance. And I just learned this 3 years ago. He's not here anymore, but he was the type of guy who would give an individual another chance. You want to come and work on a truck? You want to drive a truck? I know you've been in some trouble. You might have been in jail. We'll give you another opportunity. That was never talked about. Nope, that's never publicized. But, just getting my family history a little bit, my pops told me that, and I'm like, man, that really makes what we're trying to do that much more special, because I understand, like, I saw what he did. I know what he did. So it's like, I would love to have our community have this space where all groups, all different types of individuals could come and be a part of something so special. And then learn about why this space is so special. Learn about why it's still here and why we want to be in it. So
we're going to actually make sure that this happens, number one, okay? Yeah. So number two, Christina, we are all going to go up to Visualize and Rise when this building opens.
Absolutely.
We about to do a podcast in that thing to show how the Visualize and Rise birthed into existence, and we get a chance to share that history with everybody. And just from this episode to when it opens up, we're going to speak that into existence right now on this show.
No, I like that. Everything I'm about in life is about starting with a vision. I don't care how crazy the idea is. I don't care how far out of reach it seems. If you start with that vision and you chase it and you put in all those things that you've been talking about, that hard work, that resilience, being focused on your character, all that kind of stuff, that's how the visions become reality. And I think that's amazing, right? To be able to be sitting down in a place that you just rolled by as a kid. Yeah. It's like a couple questions, like, is it empty right now? How long is there somebody in there? How long has it not been anybody in there? Like, we a part of this now.
Yeah, you can't do anything in it. It's dilapidated pretty good.
It's dilapidated.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing, it's like all the things back in the day, they all got good bones. They got good structure. Yeah. So the middle school that I went to is abandoned now. That was built in the 70s. That's abandoned too in my hometown, but you can't do nothing with that because the bones aren't strong enough. But this building that was built in the late 40s and in the 50s, it still has good bones. But it's really, really it doesn't look good inside. This is a major project. It's going to be a few years until it's done, but like, I've already envisioned it. Like, this is going to be something very, very special. I'm going to put in on me, but then it's like, obviously, I got a story to tell about it. Yeah. I got a story to tell about it, and the story is worth listening to because it's powerful. And then when you walk through it, like, one day, you're going to come up soon, but you won't have time to walk through it. But one day I'll get you up there and you'll walk through it, and you're like, damn, like, this is where my pops went to the school for a year, but then obviously segregation was over by that. So he went 1 year, bam, it was over. Now schools are integrated. So my father went there. We know other people who went there. So it's like, it's so historical. It's so, like you walk through it and you're like, man, this is the gym where the Ralph Bunche High School played at. You know, you can read up on the articles and you can see the classrooms. You can see the back. You can see any and everything. And I just think that has a great story, and what we're trying to do has an awesome story. So I just feel like it's right. I feel like it's the right thing.
What kind of things is Visualize and Rise going to, what's going to be happening there, right? Like, I want to see the vision from where it's at now to what you're going to help it become with great partners. But like, when we pull up someday, what kind of stuff is going to be happening because of the efforts that you and Visualize and Rise put in?
So along with myself in the county, so it's a 10,000 square foot space, all in all. So there will be, it will, one, kind of serve as a community welcome center, like a hub for a welcome center, right? Obviously, because if you have the counties involved, the county's going to have their space and they're going to have the things that they want to put in, which is great, because then you have your Parks and Rec in there. So it gets, you know, you get to work alongside the county and obviously, you know, making sure that relationship is solid. And then the other group is going to have a museum in it that honors, one, the history of the building, the people of the building, and just understanding segregation and how we had to fight back in the day, telling that story. So I was like, okay, well, we can put Visualize and Rise in here somewhere too, because I want to be in the education space. I want to be, obviously, within the student athlete space, but I also want to be in the space of, you know, having people come through this building as one way and then leaving a little bit better. Whether you're a kid or you know, the older generation, it doesn't matter. Like, I foresee so many different opportunities coming from this space, but as far as Visualize and Rise, I want that to be like our home, because that's where I'm from. You know, I want that to be our hub. I want our office. I want an office space for our people in there. But to get away from that, I want a tech space. I want a STEM space in there that kids can, you know, figure out where their passion is. You know, the plans right now is to put a commercial kitchen, probably similar to something like I'm looking at right now in there. So, you know, I want to be able to have that type of environment where you can bring kids, older, you know, parents in and have demonstrations about proper ways to cook. Have the kids figure out, you know, how to start doing these things at a younger age. Really just about building life skills. And the cool thing about it, as soon as you pull up to the property around back, they have what I guess they call it an auxiliary building. I'm big in the fitness space and health. I think all that is important. It's a gym. So I'm like, okay, this is a training facility. It's literally a training facility right here. It's a standalone building that's behind the school. It's not connected. And I've already envisioned it. It's the Visualize and Rise training facility. So, like, I want to be able to have a group of students. I'm stealing everything he does at Apex. Like, teaching these kids, one, about life skills, right? How can I be a better, quote unquote, Jermon Bushrod when I walk in here, right? So if you want to be an athlete, you got to make sure those grades are right. I want to make sure that we're providing tutors, and we have, again, the electronics and the technology that these kids need on a daily basis. But then also I want to take you in a training facility and make sure that if you want to be a top athlete or if you want to be the best that you can be, well, we got some resources for you as well. Not just in this facility, but we got field space too. We'll have, you know, obviously access to a gym because the gym's not going anywhere, but that gym will also serve as a place where you can do plays, you can do, you know, you can have art shows in there, you can have whatever in there, you know, farmers market, you can do whatever on the space. It's, you know, it's, what's it, about 5 to 8 acres that you can just be on, and then there's a bunch of wooded area behind it. So it's, I just think it's going to be just like a big community space where I want to be able to have like a Visualize and Rise program that we kind of specifically, again, leaning on Caleb, just having a group of kids that we can say, hey, we want to grab you early and just help your journey to when you go off to school.
Exposure breeds expansion. And I think he's trying to expose the community to the things that they may not otherwise be exposed to.
Because I was exposed to those things. I had, like I said, man, it's always going back to my parents. I was exposed to that. I was exposed to business life. I was exposed to, I love to travel. I love to do that. My kids, my God, they've been more places by the time they're 6 or 7 than I did growing up, the types of places that we've gone to. But my parents always made sure that as much as they worked, we still did family vacation every year. You know, they still showed, you know, we just went and did things together. Yeah. And I think that's important. And I think, again, the exposure part is key, because I needed to be exposed to things as I got out of the professional sports world as well.
Well, I think number one, man, like I could see the vision as you're talking. I'm hearing about a gym, and I'm kind of like thinking about it in my head of like how things would be, where they'd be placed, after school education, STEM, innovation center, whatever it may be,
summer programs,
culinary, summer programs, you name it. There's so much you can do, but I know it takes a collective group of people to do that and bring it together. But you've given them the vision. I encourage you to just keep going, because one day we would love to be there with you. Now, real quick, before we close up shop today, we're going to give you a plug, right? So if people want to go to Visualize and Rise and they want to provide money and they're like, man, I can see this helping out. Maybe somebody from Virginia, you can send this to them once they get the clip, is like, where do they donate? Where can people help out? Where can people build community with you and Visualize and Rise? Well,
you know, you can be a part of the community on our social media platforms. That's at Visualize and Rise. Very easy to find out. And it's Rise with a Z, as you can see on my shirt.
I love how you pointed at the Z right there.
Yeah, I had to.
For clarity.
But yeah, it's Rise with a Z. So, you know, we kind of differentiate ourselves in that way. And if you're wanting to just see how our what events we're having, keeping up with what we're doing in the community, you can just hit our website, visualizeandrise.org, and everything is there. All of our events, all of our signups, and just what we've been able to do and the impact that we've been able to make.
Appreciate that. Well, that'll wrap up today's episode. I would say this right now, JT, if you were to sum this up, you do a great job of this. Sum up today's episode and what we learned today through Jermon's story.
You know, I think the thing that I keep hearing is history, and how important history is to everything we do. But we don't discuss it and think about it a lot, right? The history of Bush and his family, and how he gets to be a product of that. And how when you have good family, you start to pass good family down. But then family extends beyond just the people that got your last name. And then you want to broaden it into the whole community. And, you know, you got to think about what are those skills, right, that are going to let us be great at what we do, the hard work, the compassion, the resilience. And then how do you keep pouring that onto other people and providing them with the resources? So, you know, I can't say it more. You know, Bush, you're one of the guys that I look up to the most. You really set the tone for what it means to be a great man. I get Caleb as well, but like, no, I want you to continue doing that. Like, we were honored to have you on the podcast, and I know you dropped some things that they needed to hear. So thank you for your time as always, man. All love.
No days off, Bushrod. No days off as a dad, father, husband, as he played the game in the community. No days off. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Subscribe below. Christina knows I'm going to do that. Next Chapter Podcast, when we talk about life transitions and what it takes to be successful and turning the page. We'll see you next time.